Welcome to the Flip Your Script podcast. I'm Kristi Piehl. Devan Kline's childhood was tough. He was surrounded by unhealthy adults making unhealthy choices. He's described it as hell on earth. He escaped via athletics and eventually played baseball for the San Francisco Giants. But when that ended and he was down to his last $600, Devan and his wife started a business that changed the direction of their lives and many others. Devan, welcome to the Flip Your Script podcast.
Thank you so much, and beautiful intro. I'm so excited to be here and just share Burn Boot Camp and some of the things that make us who we are, philosophies, principles, and it's going to be an exciting time. So thanks for carving it out to spend it with me.
I'm really excited for our guests to hear, or for our listeners to hear your story and perspective, because you came from this place before you started Burn Boot Camp, which is one of the fastest growing fitness franchises in the country. And it didn't start with you and your wife having this beautiful business plan and going on Shark Tank and having a whole bunch of people weigh in and having a bank. And I mean, it was parking lot from a place of, boy, we got to make something work here.
Yeah, initially, it wasn't inspiration. I wish I could say it was inspiration. And initially it was desperation and wanting to, move away from pain. We always talk about what motivates us in life. It's like, well, the pain you're running from and the pleasures that you're running toward. And for me, it was force multiplication of both things, right? Running away from this past that I knew I was not destined for. Right. And I met Morgan when I was about 12 years old. And that was at the height of when everything really started going down in my household. Just to give some quick context, I had over 50 plus criminal charges filed in my household before I was 18 and moved out of the house. And so that constantly kept me on the baseball field or at Morgan's house. Morgan's parents are weirdly like my parents. They took care of me, and my older brother and his wife, Aubrey, took me in. And it was just always this thing I was running away from, that I was scared of, that I didn't want to go back a station and have to pick up where my parents left off. Now I love them for everything they taught me and how to be a man and how to take care of myself and my siblings and all the things they did and did not do. I have immense amount of gratitude, forgiveness, and love for, and it shaped me today. Morgan and I went to separate colleges. I got a scholarship to play baseball, which was my saving grace. I've been on food stamps more years in my life than I've been off. Right. And so it's like that I couldn't have gotten away from my, kind of the hell on earth scenario that I was in, unless that was the case, unless it wasn't for Morgan and baseball. And, here we are today. Like, we started Burn in a parking lot after I got released in 2012. We had like $600 and we bought some dumbbells from Dick's Sporting Goods. We sold out like the North Charlotte Dick's Sporting Goods of dumbbells and yoga mats and one of those plastic crates you can keep in your garage. And we ended up, in the first year having upwards of 1,000 members and something really, really special. And I'll stop there. But that's the beginning to our story, was one that comes from a place of, all right, we got to make something of ourselves. And the best way to do that is to aim at the highest good possible.
Congratulations on your success and how you're using it to help others as well. And a couple of things that you said that I want to pull apart and talk more about. But this running from pain, running towards pleasure concept, you saw that in your house, and people making different choices based on those two dynamics, the pain and the pleasure. And then for addicts, that gets into a cycle that is a nonstop cycle until the police or someone comes in and tries to stop that cycle. And you're a kid kind of watching all of this. How did you figure out how to model the balance between those two things and hold them in a healthy way when you had never seen that?
That's a good question. And I contemplate it quite often. It's like, as we continue on this journey to all try to figure out who we really are and what we're all really doing here, you come across this existential crossroad at some point, and you decide whether you are going to take control of your life or you're going to let life control you. And I think the distinct moment, at least when I'm introspective and look back on my memory, the moment for me that everything changed when I was 12. One of those criminal charges was a child abuse charge. And I had just gotten sick of my mom and dad fighting. And I got sick of the turmoil and the sound of fists hitting flesh and the sound of shrieking in my house. I live in a tiny little house, like these walls are paper thin and I can hear everything. And at 12 years old, I don't know, probably around the time I started puberty, I guess, is when I got angry and fed up, and I tried to step in and I tried to break it up. And the next thing I know, I'm waking up and my hero, my dad, who I've sent, like I mentioned, had since forgiven, and he has since passed, but he got carted away in a police car that day. And my hero just got carted away, and I didn't know what to make of it at 12, other than to realize I didn't know what it was at the time. It's really the word spirituality, but what I didn't realize at the time was what the word was. It was just something more I was earning to get from the physical plane of this earth and learn more about the mind and learn more about what's beyond that. And I started my journey to self-development like around that time. And I'll never forget, I think my parents were probably at least somewhat self-aware, because they had some Tony Robbins personal power CDs that were in, the old school 8-disc changer, if you can remember those. And I remember grabbing one day for whatever reason and put it in my, I'm going to age myself. I was like a young teenager, but I had a Sony Walkman and would ride my bike to school and listen to personal power. And that's when I started hearing it was Tony Robbins' voice, but it was really the role model and the answers that I'd been looking for. And I didn't know what it was at the time, but looking back, that's when I really started the journey to find out who I was. And I realized that, man, I got a lot of talent and I have a lot of ambition, and I'm not everything that I was told that I was. And I don't need to be held down by this. And baseball ended up being my escape to freedom, to be able to do amazing things with our life that we've been given. So yeah, it's a deep question. You know how to make somebody tear up a little bit, don't you?
We're just getting started too. Just getting started. Now, I appreciate the answer, because I think that's something that, I mean, everyone has stuff in their past that, gosh, they wish they hadn't had to survive it to get to where they are. But the human experience is overcoming, and the human experience is finding what's on the other side of the struggle. And I think what's interesting about your story and other folks we've had on the podcast is that you're also a parent. And so the whole thing is shaped and framed differently when you're looking at a situation from the child's point of view. But then you have children, and to be a parent and to be able to say, a couple of things I think that strike me particularly about your story is you're a parent who has said, boy, if it wasn't for the pain and the pleasure, I wouldn't be where I am. And I'm grateful for some of these terrible things that I saw. But yet you don't want that, your kids around that. And you probably would think differently as a parent. I mean, your wife brought you home as a pretty struggling, like your resume for a boyfriend wasn't awesome. And she brought you home, and her parents were like, great, join us. We're going to welcome you, and we're going to surround you with love. So now you're at a point where your children could be bringing home people into your family, and you can't really judge the resume of whoever they're bringing in. All of that whole long rambling rant to say, how does it make you think differently about parenthood?
It makes me see my whole story allows me to see that there's good in everybody, and that every person has something to offer this world. And every doctrine and every book and every religion and all the science and all the philosophy and everything you can study has something to give you if your heart is open and you're willing to accept it. And stereotypes are natural because we need to divide up the world in a hierarchy to make sure that the ego knows where it lies in terms of where you sit in the world. And if we can just work to through discipline in our body, discipline in our mind, our emotions, our spirit, our relationships, our time, our work, and our money, if we can strive for progress in each one of those areas of life, you start to see that each one of us have all those parts, all 8 of those parts. And the good that you give tends to bring out the good they have. And so I think that's what Morgan's parents did for me, is they saw that little good in me, that little light, and they watered that seed. I've got this tattoo on my arm. I don't know if you've ever heard of the tale of 2 wolves, but it's an old parable to teach independence and to teach decision making. And it says, there's a Cherokee grandfather and a grandson, and the Cherokee grandson asks the grandfather, grandfather, what is the meaning of life? And he says, well, it's both one part good and one part evil. The opportunity for malevolence is the same as benevolence. Joy is the same as strife. And he said, well, which do I become? And the grandfather says, the one you feed. And so it's our decision that, whether we are feeding our negative energy or feeding our positive energy, and the ego wants to pull the negative energy. And, as we move toward knowing ourselves, we are filling ourselves up with that positive energy. So if I can just get somebody else to become more familiar with themselves, even a little bit, that's what the book is all about, right? Just to get them to believe in themselves just a little bit more, get just a little bit of momentum, then we can start the work. And I'm a fitness guy. Like, I probably sound like somebody who, belongs in like a book of spirituality or something, but that's really what this whole game is. This whole game of life is just about finding out what it's all about. And don't look too far, because it's about love and seeing the love in one another. And if I can get you started, right, with your body by anchoring you in something really hard every day, something you intrinsically don't want to do and enjoy, well, I'm using a metaphor. I'm using a metaphor for all the doubt and fear and the negative state of emotion that you sometimes, and most people, actually live in perpetually. I'm interrupting that pattern, and I'm starting to get you into a more elevated state of mind, which you can actually receive yourself as being loved, so you can see it in others. So I don't know, something like that, but that is in part why we put a book together and why we put a business together, is to move people on the path of getting to know themselves better and believing in themselves. And we always say, the last thing I'll say on this is, most companies that are in our space, they'll say, like, we're a fitness company and we sell memberships. Since those parking lot days, those early days, we've always been a transformation company that sells confidence. And that one perspective, that one little tiny shift, a decade ago, just 1 degree off what everyone else was doing, now that we're 10 years later, is, a distance apart from the other philosophies in our genre out there. And, you wonder why we grow from a parking lot to over 400 locations organically like this. And that's why.
Such a great point about the mindset shift. And when I think about your whole story, the business side and the personal side, it really is this mindset shift. It's taking what could look like this to most people and then turning it a bit, and then looking at it from a different perspective, which that parable does so well. And your story and your childhood, you're not looking away from it. I mean, to know thyself means you have to look at it, and you have to see it for what it is. And you can take out the gratitude, and you can take out the, boy, I would be a different kind of adult, a different kind of father had this not happened to me. Yeah, I wish it didn't, but it did. So now I can take out the positive parts, and I can turn it into something that is positive for other people. And these things that happen to us, how can we use them to help other people? And when I think about your whole story, like, that is the arc of the story, that, gosh, this stuff happened, and how can we use it for good? And that connection between mind and body, that is so strong, that is your childhood baseball, that is your business to, being a very successful business. All of that is so connected. And I think if all of us look at our lives and our stories, those seeds that got us where we are today started way back at some point. And it was, to your point, like, what part of that are you going to water?
Yeah.
What part are you going to feed?
100%. And, I think we can, even the stuff we don't feed, we can use as energy. We can transmute negative energy into positive energy. And I talk about it in the book, I think, less poetically, and I call it push and pull motivation, because I think those 2 words, like something pulling you in the future to the future, some enchanting vision that you can have for yourself, and also something you've actually physically experienced, right? That happened to you in the past that, man, that brings up negative emotion. You want to run away from that. If you have the push and you have the pull, and you have those two perspectives that they can help you force multiply your way forward, it's so powerful. A lot of times we just think about vision as being this thing that, or goal orientation as being this thing that kind of gets watered down, and it's this white noise because everyone's got to have a goal, and a goal's a chore, and it means I got to do work, and I got to do the things, and the things I don't want to do, and then I get imprisoned to my schedule, and now I have to. And it's like, no. What's that enchanting vision of the future look like? What's that pull motivation? And what are you running? And what are you running from? It's useful to have both. I really believe that.
It makes so much sense. I think about my own life, and I have always found the hard stuff. Like, it's easier to do hard things mentally when you know you can do hard things physically. There's something about that just gives a whole different perspective. The two hardest workouts I've ever had were not. It was because of the stuff I was going through mentally. The day that I was graduating my first son from high school, I went on the most intense run, and I cried most of the way, and it was awesome. And the second one was not that long ago. My son had just had his ACL surgery, and it was much more going on in that knee than they thought. And he couldn't run. And I knew he wouldn't be able to run for a long time. And I got on, it makes me want to cry thinking about it. I got on that treadmill and I went after it, and I was crying and I was screaming, but it's like, okay, I can do hard things. Like, the hardest thing that I'm going to do that day is not the run. It is graduating the kid and taking care of the kid. Like, if we can figure out that we can do hard things physically, the mental stuff becomes just a little bit easier. It's that training the brain. Again, you know the science, you've written books about it. I want to mention the books. Burn Boot Camp was the first book. The new book that just came out, the Burn Boot Camp 5-Step Strategy for Inner and Outer Strength. And I suspect that I not very well just communicated some of the things that you prove to be factual in the book.
Yeah, there's 5 main pillars, the 5 pillars that have always made us who we are as an organization. And it's burn for the body, achieve, as we teach you to set goals and be goal oriented, and the things we were just talking about, the push pull motivation. We call it set a North Star goal, or some envision of yourself in the future. We can talk more if you'd like to about that. The third one is nourish. Obviously, the energy that we are putting into our body, it's either positive or negative. It's not good or bad. It's just positive energy or negative energy. And you are what you eat, and you are what you ate. And it's really important that we manage our energy through food, because that will be the state of mind, or a precursor to the state of mind that we're in. And then number 4 is believe. The believe strategy just really talks about self-awareness, connection with yourself. Most of us are like, hey, I'm, Bob, or the banker, or Devan, the trainer, but like, you're so much more than that. Like, you got this surface level identity that you just walk around in this world telling people what you are, but it's like finding yourself, knowing yourself through emotional intelligence is what believe is all about. And then finally, the 5th one that holds it all together is connect, or community, right? And people say, Devan, how are you going to scale burn? Like, you have emotions and connection and relationships are at the center of it. How do you scale relationships? And the answer is connection, community, a common language that we can all, a common set of beliefs and principles that we all look to one another and hold each other accountable against. And the accountability that is the child of those other 4, plus a connection being there. Accountability is birthed in. Man, when people have accountability in their life, can they take on responsibilities that they never thought they could take on? And there's 14 stories in the book that come from 14 locations. And I can shout out Cynthia, Hope, Kelly, Eliza, Karen, Tori, Elaine, Samantha, Brian, Tiffany, Jesse, Drew, Keith, and Gage, because they put it on the line, and they are not holding back, right? They're telling all of the desires that they had and how they were stopped by these struggles, from cancer to alcoholism to super obesity to, you name it. Every human problem, every human archetype in there is covered. And when you put these 5 things together, they didn't know it. They thought they were coming to burn to just like do push-ups and squat, and they didn't really know how deep we were going. More than a gym. If you're just looking at it, just looks like a tagline. It doesn't look like something that's actually taken seriously, because in most cases it's not, right? The core values and the taglines are not embedded into the DNA of organizations. And us, we are who we say we are, who we've always been and who we always will be. And these are 14 members out there who put their stories in the book, really personify what it's like to use your body, like the physical tool here that we can see. It's tangible. You can touch it. Like you said, the hardest thing you can do in the day is demand, more of yourself than you're willing to for 45 minutes, and watch how confidence just pours on you. And then we use that as kind of the wedge in the door to open their eyes up to an entire world of self-discovery. And we say in our mission statement, we vow to educate, influence, and inspire every life we touch with knowledge in our head and love in our heart. And that's Burn. I mean, that's our essence. That's who we are. And the book really embodies that. And I know our franchise partners are excited to get it into our members' hands, and they already are. I mean, it's out right now, and you can go to any gym and you can buy one or get it on Amazon. But it's just a true testament to the entire system and how much collective blood, sweat, and tears we've put in over the last decade plus.
And when people come to the gym and they're like, I just got these 5 pounds, Devan. I don't want a new mantra. I don't want the whole new way to think about my life. Are those not your ideal clients, or do they finally eventually get to like, oh my gosh, how did I ever live without this? It's for sure not just about the 5 pounds.
Yeah, no, this is such a good one because, and Morgan and I do keynotes now that the business has been successful. People ask how we do it. And this is so obvious to me. It was obvious to me in a one-on-one setting, what you're saying, but also in a big group setting. Let's say there's 1,000 people in a crowd, and I can ask somebody like what their why is, how that terminology has become pretty cliche. And they'll give you an answer, but most people, it's simple as it is, we'll just let them stop there. They're not holding them accountable to saying, okay, why, go 3 more layers deep. And that's just a simple notion that, we use that in our business to get to truth internally. Hey, we call it root cause analysis, right? Like, we're not worried about, being fit and toned. That might be a byproduct of the real underlying outcome. Because I don't think you're lying to me. I think you're an honest person. You want to be fit and toned. Who doesn't, strive to be at least some degree of fit and toned and healthy and have energy and all those surface level things we think we're coming for. And so I welcome that. If somebody wants to come in and that's most of our marketing message is, coming in to say, hey, come do a trial, come get a workout in, join our community. It's very workout based, community based. But once you get in and you realize now you're in this environment where, just like a basketball player that goes from junior varsity to varsity, they realize now that the competition is more fierce. They realize that, oh, there's another standard to what I can hold myself to. And it's not a competition. It's just an observation. And we try to make sure that, our members, without competing with one another, are conspiring, I think is a better word, to feed off of one another's energy. Almost like 2 wrestlers who really have a respect for one another, but they make each other stronger with the resistance that they give each other, and then they hug it out and shake hands. It's kind of that mentality where our members really find out who they can become. They find out how strong they are, just because our trainers are so darn good, and we're all personal trainers, and we all want to move people on an individual progression. We help them find out really who they are. And then from there, that's the seed that we keep watering through focus meetings, which is our one-on-one in gym kind of consults. And, we take it beyond the gym into more personal relationships as well, and do a lot of things as a community to facilitate and foster accountability.
That's the great thing I think about your whole model is that, if you go to the gym for the 10 pounds or the whatever I want, the physical outside, but you don't do the inner work, and you call it inner strength. If you don't do that work, it's going to keep coming back, and the physical might keep coming back multiplied because you haven't done the inner work. And I think what's interesting about fitness is that so often, whether it's in a relationship, a romantic relationship or a friend group, someone will get fit. Someone will get fit, and then the other people around will be like, oh, I kind of want some of that. And it's not just the going to the gym that got that person fit. It was this whole mindset shift and a worthiness and a wellness. And how have you seen that play out where someone starts with you and then pretty soon their whole friend group is in, or their neighborhood or their whole family is in, because they want some of what the other person has because they can see it, but what they actually want is what's happening on the inside?
Yeah, no, was one of the hardest things for me to observe as a trainer. I've done this 15,000 times. I like to say I'm a trainer at heart. Like if I could do one thing and repeat that one thing every day, it'd be that, because I just love seeing the self-discovery real time. But I know that there's a calling for me to lead trainers. And so that's exactly what we try to do. And it took me a couple years of seeing the positivity and optimism through osmosis. It took a while for me to be like, okay, this is already happening organically. Now, how can we make this more intentional? How can we bring more awareness to the fact that what we're really here for is that life is mental. I mean, it's all mental. Like our soul is mental. But it is this apparatus where thoughts just fly in for like magic, and then you get to have one of two funnels. You can funnel that thought or that traffic into positive energy or negative energy. And you can see it in peace gatherings. When people gather together, a giant community of people to meditate and to pray, there's empirical third-party studies on this stuff. I mean, it brings down the level of violence in the air. And also the same is true for riots. If you see one person rioting, you get permission to then riot yourself. And I think the reason why, although this answer to me is still unfolding, I think the reason why is because people see a little bit of themselves in whoever is the instigator, and they haven't quite found who they really are. And so emulation is trial by fire. And I'm going to emulate this person until it's no longer good for me and doesn't serve me. And then I might try this person. So that's why they say, be careful who you surround yourself with, because you will then emulate those people in your inner circle. And before you're educated enough to know the difference, you could be emulating something that isn't so great after all. And so we take that into consideration, and we try to mirror and match our members. As a new member comes in, we're taught to read their energy. We're taught to understand their why, not show them all the bells and whistles of the gym. Anybody can do that. This is about you and trying to uncover quickly as we can what are your desires and what's stopping you from getting there, and then grab somebody in the gym, because as trainers, we know all of our members, and we're going to go ahead and mirror and match you. And we have this little mentorship program where two people get to hold each other accountable. And that has been one of the biggest elements to us helping people move forward. The journey is going to be there. The self-discovery journey is going to be there. How fast is it going to happen? That's the only variable, right? It could happen at a snail's pace, or you could have an awakening, boom. And a lot of times burn is that awakening for a lot of people. They're connected now emotionally to what they want the most with their everyday workout. And when that's the case, and you can make that connection, worrying about whether you're going to miss the gym or not no longer becomes an option. It's just what you do.
So based on your story and your background and experience and what you've experienced as a business owner and trainer at Burn and an author, for folks that perhaps don't live near one of your gyms or can't get into one, where do they start on this journey of self-discovery, which never ends, but has to intentionally start at one point? What's like the best tip you can give them to start shifting that mindset?
It's going to start with a question. It's going to start with, what do I want? And the second question is, what's stopping me from getting there? And if the answer to the first question is something like, I want more, and this answer to the second question is something like me, then you're ready, right? Then you're ready. If you know that there's more, and you know you're the person that's getting in your way, and you're not shifting blame in your life to others externally, then you're ready. And I think when you start asking those questions, that's when you're really going to stick to it. So, we have Burn on Demand, which is our community that lives digitally. We have our 402 gyms that are open and operating. And so if you're in the continental United States at this point, our digital platform is available. And there's a lot of other digital platforms that are available, and there's a lot of other gyms that are available. Now, do I think our gym and our community is one you should consider as when you're looking at what's best for you, with the amount of transformation and inspiration and just pure positive energy that I see? I don't know how you wouldn't want to look at it. But that energy is there online too, right? There's nothing that's going to replace you being in a community of people in your backyard. But if you want an intro to Burn and if you desire to seek a better version of yourself, On Demand is a great place to start as well. All that's on the Burn Bootcamp app, by the way, on Google and Apple.
And if the answer to the first question is I'm good, like I'm happy where I am, I don't need to change anything, then the status quo is fine for you. But I don't know very many people, if they're honest with themselves, don't want something in their life to be better, more productive, more effective, more efficient, more fill in the blank.
Yeah, and that blockage is important, right? That blockage is an ego talking, because there's a unlimited opportunity to be better, to be more good, to be more enlightened, to help more people, to bring more people down the path. Once you get to a point where, hey, everything in those 8 buckets that I mentioned earlier, hey, all pieces of my lifestyle pie, man, I'm making progress toward where I want to be, then I'm going to be content. I'm going to be fulfilled. My head and my heart are going to be congruent, and I'll be aligned. But your job's not done. Your job, in order to keep feeling that feeling, is now be a steward of helping others feel that way, and not showing everybody, hey, look at me, and look how great my body is, and look how great my money is, and look, oh, how beautiful my relationship is, and oh, by the way, I have such a strong mindset, right? It's no. Now it's teach others how to feel what you feel. Teach them the tools and the tactics. Start with one, and each one kind of teach one. And to me, that's the journey that we all go on, and that is loving. The accountability, the responsibility that's shared amongst us, that's love. That's the true manifestation of love. And what the heck else are we here for if it's not to spread more love and more happiness, and hopefully along the way answer some of life's questions, and but stay present and stay grounded, and use that workout as an anchor to make sure that you stay disciplined to something that's hard every day.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. Our last question is one that we ask every guest on the Flip Your Script podcast. Is there a quote, mantra, something that has motivated you as you flip your script that you would share with the audience?
Yeah, I definitely have one, and it's one that it resonates with me at a very high frequency. It was by Tony Robbins, back to my personal power Walkman. And the quote is, when you have no resources, get resourceful. And that really resonated with me, because I didn't grow up with a lot, didn't have a lot to work with. But what I did have is the 6 faculties of my mind. I had my imagination and my perspective and my reason, and I had my mind. And I always knew that was all the resources that we could ever need. And I think that's why Burn started in a parking lot. I'm like, nobody wants to give me a lease. Well, resourcefulness continues to play out. So remember that. You don't need the resources if you're resourceful.
Thank you. It was great talking with you. Thanks for sharing your story, and we'll put links to the books and the different things that you mentioned website on the Flip Your Script website. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Kristi. I appreciate you.
Well, this week's Flip Your Script challenge, I think, is rooted in that concept that to do hard things mentally often requires doing hard things physically. Just to remind yourself, you know what, I'm someone who can do hard things because life is full of doing hard things. So this week's Flip Your Script challenge, do something that you right in this moment think is hard and you can't do. You can do it. My hope is Devan's story empowers you to believe you're capable of more than you think, to discover motivation, to uncover inspiration, and to find strength to turn the page.